this is sort of the version of their on-prem installation. I don't know how many companies are still doing that. In some cases, they might need to do this depending upon how mature their cloud offering is. In general, the expectation from the cloud is going to be that cloud should be able to scale any workloads.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. And for today, we have one of the solutions from the supply chain management or the S&OP portfolio. It's Oracle Demantra, which is slightly more legacy solution. I think they have a different name in the cloud. So that's what we are going to discuss in this session. Before we start, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I'm going to start with my quick intro. Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. Andy, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you so much for inviting me. Oh, I shouldn't have worn this shirt. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I totally forgot.
Promote sorry. Whatever you can, Andy.
Huh? Yeah, no.
Can.
I'll do this. I did not mean to do that. I'm so sorry. It was the only clean
People
shirt.
People don't even know what is there.
Well, you know what it is, Sam, is you don't know what you're in for.
Exactly. Andy's joke. She can pull them off anytime, anywhere.
Maybe I can do this. There we go.
Don't take off your shirt.
Anyhow, I'm sorry, Sam. I seriously did not mean to do that. I've been involved in ERP software for manufacturers all my life. I've worked all over North America, and I've written a book that helps companies evaluate and how to uncover the truth about ERP software before they buy. And thank you so much again for having me attend.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Andy. Shrestha, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. I'm Shrestha Das, and I'm part of the marketing team at Elevate IQ. And I'm super excited to be here.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, guys, once again for being here. And if you're in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions, comments, any sort of stories that you might have related to this solution. We are always looking for any experiences that you might be able to share. We generally utilize them as part of our reviews. So super excited to review them. On that note, I am going to start with the quick briefing, guys, for the solution. So this is a fairly legacy solution. I think in the new world, it is called Oracle Demand Management Cloud. And that is part of the Oracle Cloud ERP portfolio. And I don't know where you sort of draw the line between the ERP and supply chain. We have been talking about the construction of supply chain suite. That is slightly different than how your ERP suite is going to be. So this is going to be just one of that component from the S&OP perspective. So overall, I guess last week, and I don't know whether you guys remember or not, I think we reviewed RELX. So RELX was S&OP component as well. They are not going to have any other layers that you are going to find in the supply chain suites. And when I refer to supply chain suites, those are not necessarily ERP suites. These are going to be constructed slightly differently. So from the supply chain suite perspective, there are two angles that we typically discuss. Number one is going to be overall from different modules or components that are going to be part of your supply chain suite, which is going to be your S&OP. It's going to be your WMS, TMS. So that is one sort of layer, overall from the construction perspective. The other perspective that we have is network plus planning plus execution. And generally those WMS and TMS, they fall under that execution piece. S&OP is going to be slightly more the analytics piece. And then third is network. So in general, Oracle's solutions are slightly more technical platform. They don't necessarily have a real network. The ones that you are going to find with solutions such as your E2 Open, they probably have the largest network in general. Blue Yonder was a slightly more technical solution as well, but I think they have acquired a company and they are acquiring some proprietary network capabilities as well. In general, in the supply chain space, you are going to see a lot more collaboration, integration. Everybody sort of collaborating with each other. Even competitors are collaborating with each other because nobody has access to data sets across the geography, across the modes. So everybody is going to be dependent upon somebody's data, and that's why you see this collaboration a lot in general in the supply chain space. So that is the network piece. But for Oracle, the network piece is probably not going to be as relevant because they don't have their own network, and that's why you are going to see solutions such as E2 Open as well as your Blue Yonder. You will very commonly see that they are being installed alongside your SAP and Oracle, because again, these solutions do not have the network component. They are not as good at S&OP piece, even though some companies might utilize, let's say, Oracle Demantra as well as Oracle Demand Management Cloud for from the demand forecasting perspective.
Looks like very similar competitors to the product we reviewed last week.
Exactly. This is going to be slightly more enterprise product, I would say. So we saw a lot of enterprise logos with Relics as well. One observation that we had last time, Andy, that Relics was primarily in the Microsoft ecosystem. We saw a lot of conversations around Microsoft GP. They had a little bit of FNO exposure. I'm pretty sure they are going to have some NAV as well because Microsoft has decent presence in the retail CPG space. Oracle has substantial presence in the retail CPG space as well, and that you are going to notice with NetSuite too. And the way Oracle approaches the whole supply chain suite, retail piece as well. They have a lot of components from the supply chain perspective. They were always strong with that. Their ERP is not going to be. It's going to be strong, but the approach is different. The architecture is different in general. So their architecture is going to be slightly more friendly for retail CPG centric businesses. So here we have some of the layers. For example, let's say demand forecasting. That is something that pretty much everybody is going to have across the supply chain suite space. Now, one of the other angle that we generally cover that we have not touched so far in this session is the whole whether you want the centralized version of your analytics layer, or do you want centralized version of your supply chain suite layer, or do you want your centralized version of your ERP layer. Now these three things are very 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 strategic decisions that you need to make. Okay, which one do you care for most? Okay, if you want your planning to be centralized, and when I say planning to be centralized, meaning you are looking at all of those pillars that are part of your planning, which is going to be your FP&A, which is also your CPM. Then you are going to have S&OP, which we are discussing today. And then finally, you are also going to have the workforce planning component. If you are trying to centralize all of that, not very many solutions have those capabilities. For example, let's say if you go to Relics Tools Group, they are not going to have FP&A capabilities. They are primarily known for S&OP capabilities. Connexus is probably going to be the same. E2 Open, again, very heavy supply chain exposure. So they are not going to have all of those capabilities. Now, if you're looking for centralized planning component where you are sort of trying to bring all of these data sets together, whether you are going to have this more from the marketing perspective, finance, operations, everything combined and trying to plan together, that's where your solutions such as your Oracle Demantra is going to be a better fit, because Oracle is going to have other products that are sort of integrated, so they can provide that centralized state, not only from the ERP perspective, but also from the analytics perspective. So if we take this view, then from the analytics perspective, you are looking at solutions such as your Anaplan, because they can do the whole connected planning piece, combining all of these layers across the departments. So again, that's going to be your design architecture decision in terms of which component do you care for most and which need to be centralized in general. In general, the planning component, and again, Andy, I think you used one term last time called recommendation. And recommendation is probably the right word to describe the capabilities of these products. So this is going to be slightly more macro view. This is going to be, okay, you are either looking for monthly planning for your stores, monthly planning for your warehouses. You are probably looking at daily movement of goods across your warehouses, across your retail locations. That's where these tools are really good for. The intent of these tools are not necessarily to cut a specific PO. Some companies might do that, but that is probably overstretching the capabilities of these tools. The planning boundary ends when you are doing this whole macro level planning, where you are not only going to require internal data, external data, all of these components. That's when these tools really shine. So now, when you look at Gmantra, it has, and they are using terms such as, they had roughly what, 12 or 15 different forecasting algorithm, and that is probably the max that you are going to see with any of the tools. So these are different strategies that they are taking in terms of what is going to be your forecasting strategies based on the variables, based on the data sets that you have incorporated in the tool, and then the tool is going to recommend a lot based on the algorithm that you might be using. So you have a lot of flexibility in doing the what if scenario based on different strategies, and then figure out, okay, what is going to work for your business based on your experience. So again, that's where your enterprise grade capabilities are going to be. Tools such as your, when you go for SAP ERP, they might implement some of these strategies as part of their ERP layer as well. But again, the intent of ERP layer is going to be slightly more transactional, operational, and I would say micro view is where ERP really shines. But you might see algorithm implemented at both places. You might see allocation implemented at both places as well. So some of the things that you are going to notice with, let's say, for example, let's say if you look at Oracle Demand Management Cloud, even though you are going to get very cloud native interface with your Oracle Demand Management Cloud, at this point of time, the screens that we have, they are fairly legacy, fairly clunky, but this was the on-prem view. So in the cloud, they have kind of re-architected all of this. These capabilities are available as part of your Oracle Cloud ERP portfolio as well, but they may have done a little bit of reorganization of where each of the capabilities belong. So we'll review some of the architecture as well in terms of how that was represented in the on-prem world and how these capabilities are going to change in the cloud world. Because again, the technology is very different. The way companies are approaching cloud is very different. So you are definitely going to experience some changes. So let's say if you are used to of this tool and you are trying to migrate to cloud, then you need to think about these things. Okay, how each of the components are going to be represented, because that is going to change the licensing. It's going to change your overall cost. That's going to change, how your integration points are going to be, etc. And what is going to be the scope of each of these tools as well. That determination you need to make based on the new capabilities. So that is a little touch up, between their on-prem presence. In general, in the reviews, you're going to find that their capabilities were slightly stronger in the on-prem world, but that might be just the reorganization of the capabilities. In general, these tools require a lot more firepower from the compute perspective, from the infrastructure perspective, because they are literally hosting, I don't know, let's say if you look at ERP as one database, these tools are hosting uh, thousands and sometimes millions of scenarios, and they are going to be exact replica of your ERP databases. The layers might not be as detailed, or sometimes it could be more detailed depending upon how much data you are augmenting, but you require a lot more firepower in terms of the processing capabilities, in terms of the planning capabilities. So again, the perspective is very different. The tightness of the data model is not going to be as tight with these tools, but overall, the amount of work that these engines are doing, it's a very, very, very different. It's going to be future. So again, you have very detailed timeline as well. The intent of ERP is going to be slightly more current.
Considering their target industries, I would assume they're very popular in Alberta and Texas, eh?
And Middle East.
And Middle East, sure,
Yes.
of course. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
they definitely have very heavy presence in oil and gas. In general, Oracle is very well present. Oracle, if you look at their the kind of case studies, the logos, they are very well penetrated into media, telecom, banks, insurance, finance, public sector, not for profit, oil and gas, energy, utility. These are the organizations where Oracle really shines. So they have a lot of presence in retail and CPG as well. And yes, and construction. Construction, Oracle has big presence in the enterprise sector. Yeah. And by the way, guys, you are going to require the supply chain planning even for oil and gas and construction. And they have fairly sizable supply chain planning for that. Sometimes the factors that matter for oil and gas and construction, they could be far more impactful, I would say, for the business than what you are going to notice with CPG and retail. So these tools are going to be relevant for those industries as well. Great point, Andy. So overall, from the competition perspective, obviously SAP IBP is going to be the competition. Infor Nexus is the second competition. The real differentiator that we have from the Infor Nexus perspective is Infor Nexus is going to have the whole network piece along with your analytics. Oracle, they are going to have a lot more capabilities with trade settlement, trade promotions planning tool. Just because for CPG, it matters a lot more. Infor has presence in retail, but it's not going to be as prevalent as Microsoft or Oracle in general. They like to target the retail organizations that are going to be slightly more manufacturing centric as well. They don't necessarily target pure play retail. So that's where the real distinction is between their target markets and their capabilities. QAD is very supply chain heavy. They do a lot more work in general in the retail space than some of the other tools. Then you have IQMS, which is your Dassault systems, which is also very manufacturing heavy in general. They are very plastics heavy, so they are going to have some retail component, but again, they are probably not pure play retail either. What else do we have? And the other competition that you have, this is slightly different. These are not necessarily ERP vendor, so these are going to be your supply chain suite vendors, right? So the competition here is going to be with their just the S&OP module that they are going to include as part of their layer. So here you have E2 Open, Blue Yonder, Connexus. They are going to be the real competition for Oracle Demantra. Then Anaplan, they are going to have a lot more connected planning, which is probably they are going to see them in a lot more deals in general. Relics is slightly more mid-market solution. They are not necessarily enterprise solution. Obviously, anything from Oracle is probably going to be slightly more enterprise unless you are talking about NetSuite. Tools Group is a very mid-market solution as well. Logility, I would say, slightly more upper mid-market. O9 Solutions is very enterprise. They have the cloud native presence for retail, so they are definitely a competitor for this. So one of the things that you are going to notice a lot in their case studies, demos, as well as the reviews is that they are really known for their demand forecasting capabilities. In general, the start of S&OP process is always going to be demand forecasting because that's where the major pain is for most companies in general. So that's why you are going to find a lot more heavy focus on that. But the demand forecasting capabilities from the enterprise perspective, they might be far more prevalent. But let's say if you combine the networks role as well as the other layers that you are going to be needing for your planning, they might not be as robust as you are going to find inside tools such as your E2 Open, Blue Yonder. Manhattan has some of that component, but again, it's not going to be as rich in general. The complete planning suite, we have already touched on this point that they are not going to have all of those components, or but I mean, they are not going to have all of those components as part of the same product. It's going to be slightly different experience compared to, let's say, if you compare this with your Anaplan of the world, which is probably going to have all of those components as part of the same platform, but there is slightly more technical tool in general. So your implementation costs are probably going to be higher with them in general. But here again, you are dealing with a lot more enterprise layers, so your implementation cost is probably going to increase here as well. So that's pretty much it for this one. Unless you guys have any other comment, I can keep going here. If not, then this is sort of the version of their on-prem installation. I don't know how many companies are still doing that. In some cases, they might need to do this depending upon how mature their cloud offering is. In general, the expectation from the cloud is going to be that cloud should be able to scale any workloads in general. But depending upon where and which data center you are deployed on, what is the infrastructure capabilities. So again, the kind of heavy lifting that you need for these kind of workloads, you might want a little POC there, whether they can do heavy lifting for you or not. Otherwise, we have seen case studies from even some of the enterprise grade tools such as your JDA that they have struggled with those SKU plus your store combinations in doing planning for those. So the infrastructure requirements in general are going to be higher. So that's why in the traditional days you are seeing this architecture where you are literally doing this planning at the database level. So you have a little bit of database, you have the web platform that you need to plan, and then you are going to be doing the whole integration piece, and then you are going to have a little bit of your analytics piece as well that you are going to be building on top of this. So again, you would require a lot more IT capabilities in general to be able to enable this architecture. Overall, from the number of capabilities perspective, they like to position themselves as demand management, real-time sales and operations planning. I would be careful with the word real-time there. The intent here is not necessarily real-time. I would say maybe near real-time, but near real-time could be subjective as well. So I think the best use case here is going to be that it can probably do your day-to-day planning. And
Is
when
it
I say
polling over certain between different periods of the day? Is that what it is?
so this would be, how many pallets do you need to send to a store, Andy, or how many pallets do you need to send on a daily basis to a warehouse? So that's what I call slightly more macro planning. That is probably going to be near real term, meaning you are not looking at the sales and operations planning at the order level. You might do that as well, but that is probably going to be at the category aggregate level inside your S&OP. When you are looking at the transactional planning, when you need to do the intraday adjustments, that is what is going to happen inside your ERP. So here, when they say real-time sales and operations planning, again, they are talking more about the analytics, recommendation, study, the terms that you use, Andy.
I see.
Yeah, the biggest strength that you're going to have are going to be, with respect to your trade promotions management, deduction, and settlement management. So when you look at trade promotions management, I think we have seen these capabilities with very few tools. E2 Open had this, Blue Yonder probably had this. Who else? Relax a little bit, not a lot. Just because they are very heavy in retail as well. But the whole trade promotions piece, Andy, this could be very deep as well. Okay, so what you are really looking, and we have some screenshots that we'll be able to discuss here, but here what you are looking at is you are looking at every single retailer or the whole value chain through which you might be selling. So you are planning at the BDF level, MDF, and if you guys are not familiar with these acronyms, that is going to be your business development fund. Okay, that is going to be your market development fund, and you are trying to map out all of the promotions that you might be commercializing to these guys, and you are looking to see, okay, when you are going to meet your targets, based on those promotions. So you are planning pretty much the whole value chain, and that process can get very sophisticated, and that's why only enterprise grade tools are probably going to have these capabilities. You are not going to find as detailed capabilities for trade promotions planning in with your mid market tools. Now, deductions and settlement management is very interesting as well. I would say we saw these capabilities probably within Info Nexus. They had far deeper capabilities for deduction and settlement management. And this would be the scenario when you need to, let's say, collaborate with your supply chain partners, and they are going to send. Most of the time, this is, I don't know whether this is going to be more from the inventory side or from the transportation side. Most likely, Oracle Demantra is probably not going to cover the transportation side, but you see a lot more, deduction and settlement management, in that aspect. But this is more going to be more from the trade promotion perspective. Let's say either you have some sort of overages, from the trade promotions perspective, you need to sort of settle. That's where this settlement is going to be, which is probably very different from your transportation settlements reconciliation, which is also very different from other vendor settlement and reconciliation that you are doing. So here, this is really the marketing side of the things, where you are doing the trade promotion settlement. And Info Nexus, I don't think they do the marketing side of settlement management. Their perspective was more of the vendor collaboration, and whatever issues that you are going to get, from the PO perspective, from the international transportation perspective, custom, etc. That's where they were really strong, just because they are targeting a lot more automotive centric verticals, and in that you are going to have a lot more international trade collaboration as well as the settlement. Here, CPG is very different, right? A lot of these vendors are going to be fairly nationalized, localized, they are going to have, and in that itself, I mean, they are probably going to have billions of dollars in revenue. So again, the capabilities are very different. Now, one more view overall. Again, this is very legacy view, I would say, in terms of how their components were structured. But you are going to see some of the data flows here in terms of how the interactions are going to be with different systems that you are going to have in your architecture. So, hey, obviously, this is going to be from the perspective of your Demantra. So here you have supply chain intelligence. They are calling this supply chain intelligence. So here they are looking at historical production plan, total backlog, past due backlog, on-hand inventory, actual production. A lot of these things, I would think that they are probably going to come from maybe data warehouse, because I don't know where else you're going to have the historical data. Maybe inside ERP, but it is not going to have, depending upon when it was installed, it might not have all of the history. So it may be the combination systems, that you are bringing it from. The on-hand inventory is definitely going to come probably from your ERP. Past due backlog, that has also come from your ERP. Actual production data, that is probably going to come from your ERP. Then Oracle also has Siebel marketing and TPM. So again, in the cloud world, these components might be slightly different, but it's very interesting the way they are sort of trying to send some data. For example, you have lifts, you have baseline, you have optimum events calendar, and these events are not going to be the real marketing events. These are going to be slightly more promotional events that they are trying to promote. So you have a bunch of promotional lifts that they are trying to promote, and based on that, whatever impact that you are hoping in your sales process. So again, this is very deep into planning. You have the demand variability that you are sending from your Demantra to your inventory optimization. So again, that's going to be the whole recommendation piece. And some of these things are, you might want to pay attention here. For example, let's say trade promotions management is going to be a dotted line. The demand management SOP, S&OP is probably going to be your thick line. So dotted line, and this is where the whole marketing piece that I have been talking about, the whole lips promotions, as well as events, all of that is going to be part of your marketing planning. Not a lot of systems in the market, they have capabilities to consolidate your marketing ops forecasting along with your S&OP planning, trade promotions management, and then finally workforce and FP&A. So that's a lot for any systems in general. They are doing a lot of heavy lifting here. You also have some of the legacy data. Obviously, that is going to be from your POSs. In general, your CPG space, you are going to find a lot of POS systems in general, and they have a lot of data that you need to include, for your analysis. Then you have your causal factors as well as your leading indicators. So again, depending upon where you are acquiring this data from, most likely these are going to be external data sets. Then you have competitive information. Again, that is going to come from some of the data companies, if you might be able to get from there. Sales forecast is probably going to be internal opportunities, internal, customer forecast. That is again probably internal. You are going to have budgets internal. That is going to be your own forecast. Attributes and design wins, that is they are using that as a variable as well, which is wonderful. In this case, I mean, they are sort of trying to branch this between your advanced supply chain planning, strategic network optimization, but I don't know how much network capabilities they really have, and based on that, they are sort of getting the safety stock that they are pushing to Demantra. My take of this would be that Demantra should be splitting the safety stock, but this is very interesting architecture. So again, very interesting way, the way they are structuring this. In general, it might be slightly more confusing just because they are not part of the same bucket. You are going to find very different view when you are going to look at, let's say, Blue Yonder or E2 Open. I'll keep moving here. So we have some more perspectives here, in terms of how they approach this. So they have APS collections. APS collection, they have completely different data store that is coming to your operational data store, and then you have a little bit of staging area, and they are calling this the whole piece as APS, which is your advanced planning and scheduling. If you go to Infor, they call APS very different. The APS is slightly more micro view than your macro view, but here it seems like this APS is slightly more macro view. So that's where it's going to be all over the place the way these companies use term. So you need to figure out, okay, what is the scope of APS for you? Is it macro or is it going to be micro?
Well, that's the same as almost any terminology in any kind of software, right? they always turn acronyms and definitions into basically white noise.
Exactly. And
It's not specific. They make it sound like it is, but it
yeah,
never is.
yeah. And even if it comes across as they are trying to be specific, even then they might have a lot of gaps. To be completely honest, that's why these things are so difficult. So yeah, so overall I guess they have a little bit of demand loading that they are doing inside Demantra, and then they have the export integration profiles that is coming from here. Legacy systems, you are simply doing the flat file loads. Sometimes that could be integrated as well, depending upon how automated you are. But with planning systems, you can probably do a lot of flat file loads. There's not going to be any sort of problem. They are generally very friendly for your spreadsheet loads, and that's why these systems can be siloed if you want them to be siloed. Okay, I don't have anything else. I'll go for one more view here. Now, if you are simply trying to sort of connect all of these dots based on these different perspectives, sometimes even that could be challenging. So here they are saying, now this is one view for EBS plus APS. So this is going to be your, so they are calling that, okay, EBS is their ERP instance, obviously. APS is their sort of the recommendation planning and scheduling component, and they are trying to combine these two together. So here you have the transactional applications. Glad that they are calling that out, that okay, these are your transactional applications. So from your transactional applications, you are probably going to get your history, you are going to get your unit of measure returns, but you might not always get history from your transactional applications. Sometimes that might come from your data warehouse, depending upon when your ERP was installed. Okay, then you have your item location calendar. Sometimes you might not even have locations inside your EBS, or they might not be as reliable as what you're going to find inside your WMS. Because the WMS or TMS, they are going to contain your location information. Sometimes they don't even communicate to your ERP, because ERP does not need to care for all of that. So they are calling this as more of the operational data store. In my mind, this is probably going to be a data warehouse. Then you have some of the staging tables. Again, that is probably going to be part of your data warehouse as well, where you are augmenting a lot of different data sets. Obviously, this is just the Oracle's view, so they are simply trying to highlight their systems in terms of how this architecture is going to be. But in your architecture, you might have a lot more data sources coming in to your staging tables. And then finally, Demantra is going to combine all of that, correlate, cross-pollinate, and finally going to spit out the numbers that you're looking for, the magic numbers for your demand forecasting. This would be slightly more execution piece. Again, they are not as strong as you're going to find with your Blue Yonder, and that's why companies use Blue Yonder E2Open with Oracle ERP. They are not.
Yeah, I was going to say they use it with Oracle as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, EBS is obviously strong from the ERP perspective. So they are Blue Yonder, E2Open, they are not in the ERP business. So that's why I like to distinguish between ERP suite versus your supply chain suite. So this would fall under your supply chain suite. This is your ERP suite. Sometimes they are going to use this from Oracle, because obviously you are going to get this a little bit of pre-integration. Because since this is coming from Oracle, so you have a little bit of integration. But let's say if you want to swap this piece out with your Blue Yonder E2Open, you should be able to do that. This is not as busy integration, not as, I would say, interlocked as you are going to find with, let's say, e-commerce integration or slightly more transactional integration. That's where the real difficulty is in general. Okay, so one more view. So here they are talking about enterprise one applications, and in my mind, these are going to be all of your transactional applications. So you are promoting your XML files, flat files. If you are using, let's say, Oracle Data Integrator, this is probably going to be your, the whole ETL piece. The right comparison here is probably going to be Informatica. They have the real data iPaaS, if that is the term I could use. Generally, iPaaS, they are designed for more of the service layer. They are not designed for bulk data movement. For that, you are going to have a real data layer, which is going to be either Informaticas of the world, and ETL is probably the right term for that. But again, ETL is a technology, so I don't know, what is the right term. Data integrator is probably the right term, because Oracle is using it. Um, then you have now they are saying Oracle APS planning, which could be confusing, because my understanding of APS is probably going to be, generally APS term is used with your advanced planning and scheduling. So
Yes.
you have planning word embedded in that, and then you are calling planning as well.
A little bit redundant.
Exactly. So this was meant to be planning anyways. You are kind of confusing people out of calling this
It's
APS.
like the department from the redundancy department.
Exactly. Yeah, planning of planning, I guess, Andy, right? But this is definitely the planning and recommendation piece. This is not supposed to be your micro view. This is not supposed to be your transactional view, just to be clear. Okay, and then you are exchanging this data with your demand management, and they are trying to segment this in three different modules because they are slightly different capabilities. They are going to require very different data sources. So you have predictive trade planning, deductions, and settlement management as well. In my mind, this will all fall under that marketing promotions management. One more view. This is also very interesting view in terms of how these pieces are going to work together. So here they are talking about Oracle process manufacturing. In my mind, this is probably going to be JD Edwards. That's where JD Edwards was really strong. So this is the ERP view, and then they are doing the ASCP again. So again, in my mind, these two would fall under that supply chain suite, even though they are calling advanced supply chain planning. So it becomes very confusing, and this is the approach even Microsoft is taking these days, Andy. So I mean, we were having a conversation on LinkedIn, and these guys were like, okay, why are you calling FNO?
Yeah.
It's not FNO anymore. Now this is called FSCM, which is your supply chain management suite. That's how they are trying to position the finance and supply chain management suite. Now if you really think about it, now you sort of become accounting plus Blue Yonder. That's not who Microsoft is. So again, if you are branding yourself as that way, then it becomes very confusing because the intent of supply chain suite is very different from your ERP suite. This particular component is going to belong to your supply chain suite, which is, again, they are doing planning, but that planning is happening at the macro level. This is not your transactional planning. This is not your micro planning. Just to be clear, even though they might be using similar terms such as your production schedule, weekly procurement, daily procurement data for perishables, again, this is more of the recommendation. It should not be touching your transactions. This is only the suggestions that you are sending to your transactional system, just to be clear.
Completely correct. And, like I already mentioned, ERP companies have a tendency of using the same acronyms or the same descriptions for something that's completely different in another ERP system.
Exactly.
And it all boils down to the devil's in the details.
Exactly. So here, some more comments here. So demand management, see, they are incorporating a lot of different pieces. Again, this would fall under that whole S&OP piece. So you are looking at dependent demand. That is going to be slightly more supply side of things, right? And then you are going to look at new product introductions. So obviously, in the process manufacturing restaurant business, you're going to see a lot more scenarios of that. So they need to plan that. New locations, restaurants. So any of the real estate planning that you are doing or the store level planning, all of that is probably gonna happen here. So obviously they're really big into that hospitality space as well. That is one industry that we have not touched so far. Then you're going to have a little demand split, causal factors. So the whole seasonality piece, that is going to be super critical as well. But again, a lot of this data is going to come from your POSs, especially if you are going to have very strong retail component. Then POS is where the real play is. They are going to have a lot of data sets that you will be using as part of your planning component. We don't have any comments, don't have comments from you guys, so I'll keep moving here. Okay, so one more view. This is also very interesting. So what they are doing is they are doing PTP, and PTP is going to be quota and fund entry. So this is, they are saying top down allows headquarters to manage funds, including fund rates and fixed rates, as well as sales quotas at a fairly high level that is going to be yearly for retailers and territories. So this is the whole value chain planning. You have your retailers, you are asking them, okay, you need to meet your quota. Okay, this is going to be your promotion. Okay, what you are committing for, based on that you are going to qualify for certain funds. Obviously at the corporate level, you need to plan for all of those funds to be able to allocate them in the right tier. So there are a lot of variables and the data entry that needs to happen across the value chain, and these guys are able to manage all of that process. And then you are going to see that you are doing this top down from the market perspective. Then you are doing bottom up as well, depending upon what data sets you might have there. So you have brand development fund, you have market development fund, you have slotting funds. Can you believe this? I don't think I have heard of slotting funds before, but I can see the use case of that in enterprises, why they would do that to retain the right spaces. And for retailers, again, that's where you're going to have a lot more scope for retailers. This might not be as applicable for other companies that are not going to have physical locations. Then obviously you have factors such as your volume dependent portion. Based on that, you are going to get the discounts or the funds that you are getting. So you have those constraints as well. Again, this planning could be very, very, very thick based on the number of variables that you're going to have in that. Then the bottom up planning, and they are trying to fine tune the quotas and funds and displaying their breakout weekly by promotion group. So they are doing week by week planning. Sometimes that could be daily as well, but daily could be too much planning, I guess. So that's why they are doing it at probably at the weekly basis. Yeah. So you are looking at some of the cumulative volume, for a territory compared to the plan, compared to the last year's performance. So that's going to be your volume tracking. But again, this is all planning view, not necessarily the execution view. This is going to be just the recommendation and suggestion. This is a very interesting view as well. So this is going to be, for example, let's say if you're looking at manufacturer hierarchy, and that is going to be slightly different because they have, let's say they might be carrying multiple brands, and then brands are going to have multiple items. Then you are going to have category. But let's say if you look at this at the category level, you are going to have category, segments, brands, and items. So very different planning, very different view, and these are different hierarchies that they should be able to support. In general, most tools are probably going to be okay with respect to hierarchy. It's the volume and the number of variables that you're going to have that matters a lot in general with these tools. So that's where you should be putting a lot of energy in vetting whether they can support the volume for that or not. This is some commentary. So here they are saying, I think this is coming from their training, I believe. So they are saying Oracle's e-business value chain planning suite, and this is the first time that we have seen any company use the term value chain planning, and that is probably the right way of framing, I would say, the supply chain suites, because they are really doing the whole value chain planning, because that is going to be your internal supply chain as well as your external supply chain. Is a highly scalable and sophisticated application that can run stand alone or integrated with any ERP system. That's what they are saying, that you can integrate. But again, I don't know how many companies are going to use Demantra with any other ERP systems. For the most part, they are probably going to use with Oracle. If you are using a slightly more generalized tool, then you might want to explore something like either O9, E2 Open, Blue Yonder. Those are probably going to be slightly more generalized tool. They are going to be present in many different ecosystems. They are probably going to have pre-integration with all of those ERP providers. The Mantra may not have all of those integrations. The value chain planning suite includes advanced supply chain planning. So now they are saying, that the whole planning suite includes that. But again, I don't think they have, the same capabilities as your E2 Open. E2 Open, there were like, Andy, I don't know whether you remember, they literally have like 1,000 modules.
Oh, I
That's how
remember.
deep they are just in supply chain suite.
Mhm.
It's wild. I mean, they have a lot of capabilities. Yeah. These guys definitely don't have that. Inventory optimization, production scheduling, again, macro perspective, application along with Gmentra. But although the collection of data is performed through e-business, the Gmentra application actually sits outside e-business, and that is right as well. The intent of this is supposed to be slightly more external perspective. The intent of this is not going to be to act as more of the transactional layer. Yeah, it does not look, feel, or function like any other e-business applications. Again, this is a very different application. It will appear slightly easier. Sometimes people might feel that they are difficult, but again, they are not meant to be transactional applications. They are meant to be slightly more study applications. The intent is very different. Don't try to create your ERP or transactional applications inside this. Then they have a lot of different algorithm that they are able to accommodate as part of this. So they have some commentary related to that. Then this is the commentary coming from their supply chain management cloud solution. So this is for Demantra, this is for your cloud. So they are saying is the most far-reaching planning suite in the cloud. It incorporates supply chain planning cloud suite, which contains demand management, supply planning, and sales operations planning applications. So using similar terms, these three applications equate to the Demantra and ASCP application. I think this is a commentary coming from one of the LinkedIn post from one of the analysts, I guess. They had assessed, okay, how these two compare. and that was fairly accurate, assessment, I would say. So here they are saying can provide much of the sophistication of the Demantra demand management and advanced forecasting modules. So they are going to have all of those capabilities. Indeed, much of it's identical in convention and purpose for yeah. But then they are saying Oracle Demand Management Cloud is similar to Demantra and advanced forecasting. Yet it is quite different because your architecture is going to be different. The reorganization that they have done is going to be fairly different as well. So similar, in the core functionality of the algorithm that they were using, the pre-configured setup of data and processes. But the difference is that the cloud solution is considerably simpler to implement and use. I think when they say this, I think that is going to be more of the IT view, I would say. That you don't
The
have
which
to
thing?
spend
What would you say? What do you call it?
IT view, IT, information technology,
Oh,
IT.
oh, 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 ITV. I see. Okay.
I
Yeah.
so
I
sim-
agree.
Simpler when they are saying it's probably going to be from the IT footprint perspective that you don't have to plan your infrastructure, you don't have to plan your server, but from the business perspective, if you're looking for design and architecture and what is going to be the scoping, etc., the you are probably going to be spending a lot more time
It's all
because
the
in
same at the very least. It's all the
yeah.
same.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's probably more because now you are going to have a lot more restrictions because the
True.
cloud is imposing that they need to protect, their cloud instances. So
Yep.
in general, the work in design is going to be more. Some more commentary. What is the time? 2:51. We can go for two or three more slides unless you guys have comments that I need
No.
to say. Okay. Oracle Demand Management Cloud is Oracle's cloud version of their old flagship forecasting solution, Demantra. So they are confirming that, and then they are confirming the algorithm as well that they are fairly similar. Okay, so they are saying Demantra has promotion and trade management capabilities that ODMC does not have. It has many more predefined series to be twist into whatever processes you might dream of. 2 years ago, I would have said Demantra was inherently more stable and versatile than ODMC, but the last few years have been excellent improvement in the stability, data volume, capability, and working functionality of the cloud solution. So they are saying that they don't have promotion and trade management, but my take on this would be that they might the user who has reported this might not have access to the module that this might have, that this might be completely different where this might be hosted, because this is more of a marketing piece, technically speaking. The you know so there might be layers to this. This is the new UI. Obviously it is far more attractive in general, compared to the legacy version. So this is their demand management cloud piece. So this is where they are trying to show that you can do weekly forecast with the ability to drill into supply chain bill. So that's the kind of traceability that you're looking for. But again, this is going to be your value chain bill. There is a distinction, okay, with your transactional bill. So don't get confused. Yes, you can plan at that level, but again, the intent here is not necessarily to get to that. Even if you can get to that, that's probably not going to be real time. You are simply bringing this data to be able to make it traceable. Okay, where the problem is. Once you have identified that problem, then you are probably going to change your plan. So you have that drill to ability, which is going to be far deeper. In general, you might not find these capabilities with slightly smaller solutions. uh, and you are able to drill to at the item level. But again, this is more of the planning solution. So you are going to have drillability to be able to understand, okay, which item is causing the problem, but you don't have to bring all of those item data sets. You might bring just the generalized aggregate level information depending upon what your planning model is. Okay, some reviews. So this is coming from Oil and Energy, 2019, fairly recent. This is obviously enterprise. I really don't think that any smaller companies are going to use this solution. If we find review, then that's probably going to be negative because that is too much for them to be able to handle, and they probably bought a wrong tool. So here they are saying the planning tool when a good forecast is received from operations. So they are blaming their operations. Obviously, that's when your data is going to be. But now with AI, things might improve a little bit. In general, Gmantra is fairly legacy capability. I don't know how much Oracle is going to improve that. Obviously Blue Yonder, E2 Open, that is their bread and butter. So you are going to see a lot more AI, a lot more data sets, network. So even if your internal teams are not able to provide that, just because you have that network, they are able to correlate, cross pollinate a lot that your forecasting accuracy is going to be far more reliable from those tools than doing this inside your Demantra, because you are primarily relying on your own data. You don't have data from any other place. They are saying feeds order recommendations into ASCP for our planning team to procure products. So now they are saying that they are procuring from ASCP. For retailers, this might be okay, because in general, for retailers, they don't have a real ERP. They just have accounting system. They don't need an ERP. So that's why procurement is happening inside ASCP, and that's why you are going to see scenario where procurement is probably happening inside your Blue Yonder, Manhattan. We have seen those scenarios as well. So it's a very different architecture in general. They are saying Tableau or BI reports. Sometimes that is a confusion as well. What most people think is you are investing so much, and these planning tools are again millions of dollars as well. Okay, so you are going to think that, okay, I'm getting this planning tool, so now I should be able to get all of my dashboard here. That's not how it works. Okay, so this is going to give you a bunch of numbers from the planning perspective, but if you want real dashboarding capabilities, that's where you are going to have the real data warehouse as well as Tableau as well as BI reports. So don't mix those two things. These two are completely different tools and capabilities. That's pretty much it. So guys, how are you feeling? Comments?
Well, this is an Oracle product, so it's going to be targeted at, Fortune 1000 size companies commonly.
Yeah.
It's, obviously it's going to be a very, very powerful system, and whatever is possible, they're going to claim they can do it. And it's just a matter of ease of use and confirming it matches what your expectations are.
Yeah, great comment, Andy. Thank you so much. Srishta, what do you have?
What I understood is it is known for demand forecasting capabilities, but as you said, it's a legacy solution. So I feel like with the involvement of AI now, it has to compete with the other solutions, I feel, which are using it. So yeah.
So just to be clear, some clarifications there on that comment.
Yeah.
So we were reviewing the legacy solution, but we have to bring in the new solution as well. So the new solution that they have is the Oracle Demand Management Cloud. That is their cloud version. So now I don't know if they are still selling the Mantra. There might be some resellers that might be selling right now, because they might be making a lot more money from infrastructure. That is always the possibility, but I don't know if Oracle is actively selling Demantra or not. So they are probably going to sell Oracle Demand Management Cloud. And on your comment related to AI, I don't think Oracle is going to be investing any more money on Demantra to improve the AI capabilities, because they will be promoting their cloud product. So the cloud product is going to see a lot more in general.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that is probably going to be comparable with the other cloud native products. For example, let's say if you compare this with E2 Open, you are not going to compare this with your Demantra. You need to compare this with your Oracle Demand Management Cloud, but sometimes that could be confusing because it can come across as if this is just a module, with your ERP suite. That is not the intent.
The thing is about all these systems, they're coming out with new versions. Every ERP vendor is doing that. And commonly they'll change the name.
Yeah.
The same product or similar product, but because of a marketing effort, they give it a different perspective.
Yeah, not selling, call it something else.
No, it's not selling, so they're changing the name.
Exactly. The problem is with the name, not with the product.
The name. Yeah, sure.
More comments, guys?
No, I think we're good, Sam.
Okay, perfect. So if you guys don't have anything else, that's a wrap. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another vendor or the solution. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in today.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.